How's it going, comic book fans? Welcome back to another episode of Comic Drops, where we discuss the latest comics at your LCS. In today's episode, we are discussing every Valiant fan's favorite Visigoth and his continued plight against the Novus Romanus and Exo Manowar, Invictus issue number 2 from Valiant Comics and Alien Books. In the last issue, we saw Auric, Thyra, and the rest of the exiled Novus Romanus trying to carve out an existence on the planet Scythia. Auric was lured in by his soothsayer love interest, was visited by Ivar the Time Walker, and met up with a mysterious visitor in the depths of space. It was a surprisingly enjoyable issue saddled with a lot of questions. So, will we get those questions answered, or will we get the silent treatment like Auric did from Shanhara? Stay tuned to find out. Alright, first let's discuss the narrative of Exo Manowar Invictus issue number 2. So Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad are still on writing duties for this series, which is certainly a positive in my opinion. The groundwork they laid in Exo Manowar Invictus issue number 1 was interesting, and ultimately I enjoyed the read. This writing team has continued to build upon the mythos of Auric and Shanhara, while also creating narrative threads leading back to previous runs in the series. At the conclusion of issue number 1, we were left with the mystery of who a stranger was that Auric and Thyra encountered in space. With the beginning of issue number 2, that question is answered by revealing that this alien is Dalgan Pith. Now, if you recognize that name, and it's because during the relaunch of Exo Manowar beginning in 2012, the Vine Commander Pith was chosen to wear Shanhara, only to die in the process. Dalgan is the descendant of Commander Pith, and he helped Auric escape from the Vine ship. So thanks for that fan service right there. Then Dalgan, Auric, and Thyra speed off in his ship, the Umbra, to take the fight to the Novus Romanus. We also get a bit of exposition about Thyra still feeling betrayed by her former leader, and that the Novus Romanus have essentially spread across the galaxy, upending civilizations throughout it. Then in the next scene, which takes place on the capital planet of the Novus Romanus Empire, Volturnus, we get another reveal that takes this narrative into new territory. Ursus Nox has captured the personification of the Exo Manowar suit Shanhara herself. Shanhara is encased in a giant purple geode and looks like a normal human inside. Now, I'm not completely sold on this idea, but I think it has some interesting ramifications for the consciousness that each exo armor has. This also explains why the suit stopped speaking to Auric in the previous issue. After Shanhara threatens Ursus Nox and warns Auric to run, Auric and Thyra make their approach to take on a few Romanus ships. Then the exo armor starts speaking to Auric again, out of the blue. However, this voice sounds different and urges Auric to kill all the Romanus soldiers in the area. Their corpses shall float in eternal space. Kill them all. As Novus Romanus ships are exploding within the confines of outer space, Pith is also attacking them from his ship to aid Auric and Thyra. The destruction caused by this trio forces Ursus Nox to bring out their ultimate weapon, the Chimera, that has supposedly been used to take out entire planets. Then the narrative cuts inside a Romanus ship where the soldiers beg their emperor not to fire on Auric and the others, as it will kill them as well. In an act of desperation, the shot is fired and the fleet of Romanus ships is caught in the crossfire, sacrificing the soldiers, ships, and weapons just to take out the exo armor. The callousness of Ursus Nox is on full display in this scene, and further characterizes him as a heartless ruler of his people. The Chimera shot hits Thyra and Auric, but it affects them in different ways. Thyra is burned by the shot because of her inferior armor, but Auric survives no problem, as he should. After boarding the Umbra, Auric makes the obvious assertion that the Novus Romanus are willing to use that weapon because they are scared. As they should be. The issue concludes with Auric, Thyra, and Dalgan arriving on Volturnus, seeking to take on Ursus Nox himself. However, suspiciously there's no resistance, armies, or other weaponry waiting on them. Namane the Soothsayer tells Ursus Nox that Auric has arrived, and obviously a trap has been set for them. This issue of Exo Manowar Invictus continues to build upon the previous runs and issues to create a compelling story that fans will enjoy. Characters are handled properly, and the quality of the writing allows them to develop along with different narrative pathways. I also enjoyed seeing connections being made to previous runs of the character. See, Valiant, I knew you had it in you. All you gotta do is try. Also, the willingness to sacrifice thousands of lives for his sake continues to build up Ursus Nox as a formidable threat to Auric, and I can't wait to see these two heavyweights duke it out in a future issue. The hype for this matchup is real. The only complaint I have here is the appearance of Ivar was not touched on in this issue at all. I was hoping to get a bit of breadcrumbs to be laid down in this issue in relation to this, but I'm sure it'll be explained in future books. Overall, the narrative of Exo Manowar Invictus issue number 2 is interesting, an engaging read, and makes me look forward to the inevitable clash of titans featuring Auric and Ursus Nox. Kudos to Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad for writing an engaging story. Now, let's talk about the visuals of Exo Manowar Invictus issue number 2. Alright, let's get this out of the way first off. They did change artists between issue number 1 and issue number 2 of this series. While I'm not a fan of the manga style art, I really enjoyed the kinetic energy of Furukawa's art in the first issue. I will also say that I was disappointed when I didn't see his name on the cover. Of course, it's always a bad sign from my experience at least when comics change artists constantly, especially after the first issue. However, Fernando Baldo has done a decent job of picking up pencil duties from Furukawa. While the art lacks the visual appeal and energetic feel of issue number 1, it is on par or better than everything else that Valiant is putting out at the moment. Baldo does an excellent job of drawing each of the characters in this issue consistently and frames the action in interesting ways just like Furukawa did. Mixing up the types of shots on each page and within each frame makes this a visually striking read as he uses close-ups to capture emotion and wide establishing shots to depict the scale of the battles featured in the issue. Also, outer space, the interior of ships and Volturnus look visually appealing and feel distinct from one another, unlike the locales in another comic I recently read. In fact, the pencils of this issue feel much like the pencils of the relaunch in 2012 by Carrie Nord. They feel familiar, but also new and refreshing. And believe me, I didn't think I would feel this way after seeing a change in the artist. A change in artistic style is certainly jarring, but I was able to settle right in a few pages. If I could level one complaint about the pencils, it would be the quality of the explosions and fire in this issue. Explosions and fire are already tough visuals to create, but I felt that these two aspects of the issue were off and almost felt out of place because of how much better everything else looked in this issue. Now, on colors for this issue is Brushu Studios, which I've never heard of up to this point, but after seeing their work, I will have to say that I'm impressed. Another switch made between issue number 1 and 2, and it's not a complete disaster. Each panel is colored with vibrant hues that really showcase the action well. Each location again has its own color scheme that helps create a distinction between each, and the colorist also made sure that the swatches for each location complement the mood in a meaningful way. Also, the darkness of space is made more visually interesting with contrasting colors of pink and blue. Conversely, Volturnus is saturated with almost a monochromatic use of purples with a complementary green or two thrown in for good measure. Lighting seems to be rendered in equally skillful fashion with the glows of monitors, explosions, and Auric's sword all cascading across the environment. I'm pleased with the quality of the colors in this issue and wish that I could attach a name to them in some way. Whoever you recruited for Colors Valiant, please tell them thank you from Comic Drops. Lastly, the aspect of each book that Valiant and Alien Books continues to get right is the quality of the trade dress. Again, we have a cardstock cover, high glossy interior pages, and excellent cover art from Herman Peralta and Augustin Alessio. Valiant, if you're watching this video, I would like to request you get one of these cover artists to do an entire book sometime. It would be really something special. Overall, the visuals in this issue were a nice surprise after the disappointing work done on the Valiant's issue number 2. The pencils and color work both complement each other in a meaningful way, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Valiant's flagship series. Thank you, Valiant, for continuing to do X-O Manowar justice this time around. Alright, to sum up my thoughts on X-O Manowar Invictus, issue number 2 from Valiant and Alien Books. It's nice to see so many things done right for a change. The story is interesting, the characters are compelling, the hype of Auric fighting Ursus Nox is real, the art and colors are well done, and the switch in artist and colorist was not a disaster. And lastly, the trade dress is excellent. The only cons I can see with this issue are how the fire and explosions are drawn, and I was hoping for more insight into the Ivar appearance from issue number 1. Overall, great job, Valiant, and I want to personally thank the creative team for another awesome issue of X-O Manowar Invictus. See, Valiant, you had it in you all along. So that wraps up my review of X-O Manowar Invictus issue number 2 from Valiant Comics and Alien Books. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below what you think about this issue of Invictus. Check your pull list and don't miss out on my next video, including Faith Returns issue number 2. I never thought that I would willingly pay for a steaming pile, but here we go again.